Good evening. I will call to order the Town of Pittsburgh Planning Board regular meeting for Monday, May 19th, 2025. It does look like we are missing Elfrida also. And we do have Matt Hayes in for charity.
Yeah.
With that, we do have a quorum still. And the agenda, do I have any changes to the agenda? If not, I'll accept the motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Matt Hayes, seconded by Alan Wilson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes? Do we have any edits need to be made? All right, hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from the March 17, 2025.
Chair, I move to approve the minutes from March 17th,
I have
2025.
a motion from James Buster. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Connie McAdams. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved from March 17. Thank you and welcome, Elfrida. All right, moving on. We have public comment. Before we get all the way there, I would just like to remind everyone, please state your name and address at the start. And there's a time limit of 3 minutes that will be on the screen for you. And in the interest of time and fairness, it is the board's policy not to respond directly to comments during this period. Staff will follow up as needed. So we have Vicky Atkinson, please.
Good evening. I'm Vicki Atkinson. My address is 361 Wild Ginger Ridge, Chapel Hill. I'm part of Chatham Climate Action Network, Chatham CAN. And we're a group of people from the towns and the county that believe that local governments have a big role to play in solutions for climate change. Thankfully, last Monday evening, the Pittsburgh Board of Commissioners unanimously adopted a climate vision and framework for a climate action plan. Importantly, they included land use as part of that framework. And hopefully that will include more apartments and townhouses and mixed-use developments throughout the town limits to avoid sprawl, save trees, support walkable, bikeable, and transit alternatives. So along the lines of land use planning, you're facing a fork in the road now with Chatham Park. And even though it's not on tonight's agenda, it has major implications for climate and resilience for our communities. So we want to urge you to block Chatham Park's proposed small area plan of 5,000 acres in favor of a series of smaller SAPs of 500 to 1,000 acres. Insist on the numerous small area plans you were told in the master plan that you would get. This area may take decades to develop, and there are too many uncertainties and risks with such a massive plan that would unfold over such a time frame. It defeats the intent of careful planning. It prevents adjustments and improvements and learning as you go on. So please recommend to the commissioners that they deny the SAP change and retain elected officials' oversight of the smaller plans over time. Keep your options open. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Atkinson. We have Lenore, I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Lenore Yorker from 3355 Woody Store Road in Siler City. I'm also a member of Chatham Can. While those of us talking here tonight do not live in the Pittsboro town limits or ETJ, these issues before us impact all of us living in Chatham County. In many ways, Pittsboro is the heart of Chatham. Our government is centered here and many county residents come here to work, shop, or go to church. Last week, the Pittsboro Board of Commissioners adopted a resolution to develop a strong climate action plan that includes land use as one of its main components. Pittsboro now has the opportunity to set an example for other municipalities across the county and even the state. Looking to the future, town oversight of the development of Chatham Park South Village is essential to ensure careful, thoughtful implementation of the climate plan that Pittsboro develops. Chatham Can members in and outside of Pittsboro are feeling the effects of a changing climate. We felt the impact of summer temperatures in North Carolina which have been the highest on record for the past 16+ years. Chatham farmers who have attended Chatham Can events report increases in periods of drought and overall water shortages that threaten their livelihoods. Chatham residents have shared with us at the Pittsboro Street Fair their fears of increased storms and extreme heat. Some residents, like myself, do not have central air that we can just turn on or up. Others can't afford the accompanied rise in cooling bills. We at Chatham Can recognize that the climate impact of development in and around Pittsboro affects all of us. The recently published Chatham County Greenhouse Gas Inventory documents that transportation causes 42% of all CO2 emissions in the county and is by far the #1 contributor to greenhouse gases. The report also says that forests and trees play a critical role in mitigating climate change by acting like carbon sinks that remove CO2 from the atmosphere. Chatham County currently is 64.8% forested land. That's down 9.7% since the last study in 2020, largely due to development. I stand with others here opposing the approval of CPI's drafted small area plan for Chatham Park South Village. As this large tract of land is developed, we need Pittsboro to maintain careful oversight to ensure that planners and developers take these climate impacts into account. We cannot risk the development of sprawl that depends heavily on automobile traffic and exacerbates emissions from vehicles miles traveled. Nor can we allow the indiscriminate cutting of forests, thereby further diminishing our carbon sink. I hope that you, as planning board members, will require CPI to return to the table with the small area plans they originally indicated in their master plan of hundreds, not thousands of acres. Please help us ensure that these plans adhere to the climate policies and vision that the town puts forward in their climate action plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yarger. Betsy Kraus.
Hello, thanks for giving us the time to talk tonight. My name is Betsy Krause. My address is 680 Lycan Trail, Pittsboro. The planning department has a request before them from Chatham Park to reconsider how the development of the next 5,000 acres is handled. I live next to Briar Chapel. There are a lot of folks there that are really unhappy about some of the ways things were handled there. So I want to review some of the things that I've heard from them and some of the questions that I'd like you to ask about that development. And the time is to ask is now, not later when we're at the final plat stage. We need to be asking these questions as they're doing negotiations. So first, who does the transportation system serve? Are the plans making it easy and safe to walk and bike? How many of the residents can get to schools, trails, grocery stores, cafes, and the why without a car? Does the transit system connect the communities and each other and downtown as well? How much of the community has that access? Is a car a necessity? Is the open space wild? When I first explored what Chatham Park was about years ago, they had a video on their website of the view of the area from a plane, all forest and green, with a voiceover about the green community they were going to create. So ask, can all residents walk to areas with undisturbed native habitat? Are those areas large enough to provide quality habitat for the local native wildlife? Are the areas connected in ways that would allow the wildlife to move freely between them? What is Chatham Park doing to minimize impacts on wildlife in the forested areas they are developing? A big question with the Briar Chapel people, was the HOA in Briar Chapel. How are the HOAs going to work? Can residents participate in meaningful ways? When do developers give residents control of their HOA? How many residents are served by a single HOA? Do their bylaws protect owners' autonomy or the developers' values and pocketbooks? And last, is there affordable housing available for all folks? All the folks needed to serve a community, not just the rich folks. Is there enough affordable housing that caregivers can drive next door, not an hour to give care to my mother? Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. That is all we have for public comment. Moving on, old business, we have none. And our first item of new business, PB 25140, Cooper's Ridge, MUPD, Mr. Randy Cahoon Tingle.
Good evening. Glad to be here. I have quite a few guests here, and so my remarks will be relatively brief. Okay. So in your packet tonight, you may have seen, we're just going to go over pretty much the memo, and then I'm going to get others to give you a much more full discussion of it. But Triland Co. LLC have petitioned to have 29.6 acres of land, the red part in the center, this is site. It's currently zoned C2 highway commercial and R12 residential. 12,000 square foot lots. They're going to be reclassified, hopefully, as an MUPD, which is a mixed-use plan development. The property, which is located along the eastern frontage of US Highway 15501, Hillsborough Street, just south of McDonald's. Pretty sure you all know where this is. It's adjacent to Belmont. These parcels are currently utilized for storage shed sales and contain a closed convenience store. There are several structures on the site, including a few residential structures, all intended to be removed during the construction of this mixed-use development. Inside your packet, there's a great deal of information about it. And why I decided to try this particular time out is when you get around to the narrative itself, which looks exactly like that. What you have in your packet this time out is we sort of blended in a hybrid sort of way the application itself, and it ends, of course, at the rear with the conditions that are attached. I do want to draw your attention to a couple of things. There's a chart that starts after section 1 when you get past this particular drawing. And there are, in fact, 5 parcels. I think if we'll change to this next map. No, go one more. There you go. When you look in here, this is basically the site divided up into 5 lots. So there are 3 that actually face 15501. And then there's one that is essentially behind McDonald's. And then a very, very large piece that actually hugs Belmont as itself. There is a future road that is going to connect 15501 at a signalized intersection over to Lowe's Drive. So this sort of answers the question as to how you get in and out of the place. Those parcels are numbered 1 through 5, and those uses are here on this particular table. There's a lot of them because obviously part of this project is to maximize the potential uses. One of the features that I'm definitely going to want Mark Ashnes to speak to a little bit it has to do with the building height for the apartments, townhomes, office and institutional, and the mixed-use buildings themselves. Because there is a concept that is sort of new to here, and I would definitely like him to speak to the matter. But cutting through to sort of the end of my story, the staff finds the proposal satisfies the criteria outlined in the UDO and is requesting a recommendation by the planning board for approval to the Board of Commissioners. Included in the rear of this packet, after everyone gets through with their presentations, I do want to be very clear that there is a consistency statement that actually pretty much spells out what the recommendation is in terms of what we would like you all to give some consideration to. I think it's actually in front of the traffic study, which was attached to all this. But anyway, at this point, I'm going to invite Nick up, and I want Mark to give you all some information about the site. Going right over here.
Thank you, Randy. Good evening, members of the planning board, the town staff, town attorney. My name is Nick Robinson, and I practice law here in Pittsboro at Bradshaw Robinson Slaughter and Rayner, 128 Hillsborough Street. And I'm delighted to be here this evening on behalf of the applicant, which Randy mentioned is Tri-Land Co. LLC, in this conditional rezoning for approximately 30 acres. It's shown up on the screen. Yezin, Hamad, and Raha are back there. They're the owners of the developer. And also Mark Ashness is here with me tonight, who is the engineer and land planner and landscape architect. So he'll be able to address some of the issues as well, if any. So as Randy and the staff, your staff has reported, we're seeking to rezone this property. It's comprised of 5 different parcels. It's currently split zoned, with the northern portion being C2, basically commercial, and its southern zone being RA12. And so we're seeking to rezone it to a zoning designation that's called MUPD, Mixed Use Land Development. And if you look at your seat, I dropped off a little packet before the meeting started. It looks like this on the front page. And I put that front page there for you. Outlined in black is the actual property that we're seeking to rezone. I was just calling to your attention that if you look at the sort of bright green sections to the right is another mixed-use plan development called Belmont. And then across 15501 where it says M2, that green one there is Power Place. And then above the bypass, there's another MUPD, which is Northwood Landing. And so obviously, this is an appropriate location for mixed-use plan development. It's exactly where the town master plan, comprehensive plan calls for them. But I thought it would be good to put it in its physical context for you. We did have a community meeting at which we invited all of the adjoining property owners. It was scheduled on February 26th, 2025, but alas, none of the surrounding property owners showed up that night. But since that time, we have been working since mid to late February, spent a lot of time working extensively with the planning staff and with the town manager and town attorney. What we were essentially doing during that time was working through the conditions that would apply to this mixed-use plan development to make sure that it's a good project for Pittsboro, and to make sure that it's meeting both the needs of commerce, but also the community needs that are felt in Pittsboro at this time. So I think we went through 22 versions of the master plan that is at your seat there, working, editing, revising to get it to where it is now. I think it's in great shape. I think your staff thinks it's in great shape at this point, and they're happy with it. So I'm going to ask Mark to come up in a minute to talk to you about the site plan and the different ways that the project is intended to be put to use. But before we do that, I just wanted to offer you a little bit of the following from the legal standpoint. As you know, there are basically 2 parts to your review as planning board of an application like this. The first one is you're reviewing whether the zoning factors that are identified in the town Unified Development Ordinance can be met by approving this rezoning. And we included extensive materials in the application packet responding to each of the 10 factors. So I'm not going to read all of those to you or walk through all of them. If you have a question about any one of them, please feel free to ask me. But with regard to the main one that the planning board is focusing on would be the extent to which it complies with the comprehensive plan for Pittsboro. and the future land use map. And Randy has told you that the staff's opinion, they agree that it does comply with it. I was just going to walk through a few factors that make it clear that it does comply. The first one is this land, when you look at the comprehensive plan for Pittsboro, i.e. the plan that tells you how the town wants the town to be developed in the future, it designates this area as a mixed-use activity center, with a portion of it shown, a small portion to the east being shown also as traditional neighborhood infill. And that's on the future land use map. A mixed-use activity center designation is defined in your comprehensive plan as a place that provides a setting for services and activities that are supportive of surrounding residential neighborhoods, and they're usually located adjacent to major thoroughfares and at major intersections. Hard to find a major thoroughfare or a more major intersection than the intersection of the 64 bypass and 15501 north and south. Also, mixed-use centers are designated for multifamily housing, which can be integrated as part of a mix of uses. Randy talked to you about the large tract in the southeast corner down there, parcel number 5. It's possible that that may be a multifamily project, it may also be commercial, we don't know yet. But that's, if there is going to be multifamily, it'll be on that tract. The future land use map also states that a mixed-use activity center should be accessible by both a convenient road network and a system of sidewalks or greenways. And the good news here is we have a major road network right along the frontage of the property. And the town is extending the sidewalk from Pittsboro all the way up to this location. So it will be accessible both by vehicle and by pedestrian walking, which is great news. I think that's the main things that we would want to hit on the land use plan. The second part of your review tonight is just a review having to do with the question of whether or not the conditions that have been formulated to apply to this project are conditions that are reasonable, conditions that the planning board would say are worthy of your recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. And the conditions for a conditional rezoning, a lot of times what they wind up focusing on is some very particular things about how the process of platting and any appeal that comes up and fees and stuff like that. But it also often will address the extent and the manner in which a project addresses community needs. So I just wanted to call your attention to a few of the ways that this project does meet community needs in Pittsboro. The first one, you all know the affordable housing program in Pittsboro is a voluntary program under the Unified Development Ordinance. No developer is required to do it. And some choose to do it and some choose not to do it. In this case, without being asked beforehand, we inserted a provision that says that if that tract does wind up getting used for multifamily, that 8% of those units would be dedicated to affordable housing. And you can read the condition that's in the master plan to see how that is all broken down. In addition to that, I wanted to call your attention to, we've also agreed that 20,000 square feet of the improved area exclusive of sidewalks and multi-use paths within the right-of-way will be devoted to pedestrian spaces, so that if folks live in there or folks that live in Belmont can walk there, there'll be pedestrian amenities there for them. The town requested that, and we agreed with them that that was a good idea. In addition, there'll be an appropriately sized bus shelter pad reserved within the project in a location that makes sense. Another one is that if you can see the roadway that sort of bisects it from east to west, it connects to Belmont. That road is going to have a 10-foot multi-use path on the side of it for additional pedestrian accessibility. The last one that I wanted to call to your attention is that the final condition is a condition that requires the owner to present a plan for inclusion of art in the improvements to be constructed within the MUPD program. So in the open spaces, pedestrian areas, there'll be a consultation between the town and the developer about a way to beautify that open space with art. And there's some other particular things about the number of balconies, if there's an apartment and size of them, et cetera. Won't go into all those details, but suffice it to say, we feel great about this project. We feel like we've put it in a position to where it can really benefit the town and we can all be proud of it. And so at this point, I would ask you, if you have any questions, you can ask me now or after Mark gets up, whatever's most convenient to you. But I want to ask Mark to come up and sort of walk you through some of the other elements of the site plan. And then we just open the floor to your questions if you have any. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members, staff. Mark Ashton with the C Group. We have offices at 367 Freedom Parkway there in the Mosaic Project and I'm going to cover just a few of the technical items. I think that Nick's done a good job of sort of the overview. In terms of water connectivity, there's an existing line on Hillsborough Street, and we'll have 2 points of access. So we'll have a looped water line within the project. Also, if you look above the orange colored area, there's a stub road that connects over to the Belmont project, which was approved last year. We'll also have a water line connection there once those two roads are connected and tied together. There's an existing gravity sewer line on the west side of Hillsborough Street. So our plan is to, the site basically drains from east to west. The highest point on the site is basically the eastern side of the orange colored area. And then the drainage pattern is everything's kind of moving towards Hillsborough Street. You'll notice in sort of the southwest corner, there's a buffered area. We've got a proposed SCM or water quality pond just above that to capture and treat the runoff from the site. So the sewer will come across Hillsborough in that sort of southwest corner and then head back into town. As far as traffic goes, we had DRMP, a traffic consultant, perform a TIA, submit that information to NCDOT. That was reviewed not only at the district and division office, but with congestion management in Raleigh. And so based on the information shared, the recommendations are a full signal there at the center of the site. And then on the southern entrance, there'll just be a right turn decel lane. We'll also be adding left turn lanes for the southbound traffic at that full signal. So again, we'll have another connection to Belmont on the eastern side of the property. So if you think about it, the two main accesses out of Powell Place will be signalized now, second one. And then both the folks that'll be utilizing this particular center and also the Belmont residents will be able to either come down through the Lowe's Drive point of access or make a left and come down and use the signal at that location. So that's all been reviewed and agreed upon with DOT. They've also recommended if you're exiting the bypass from Jordan Lake and you're going to make a left turn at the top of the ramp there, they've requested that we extend that left turn lane and make it longer in the phase 2 portion of the project. In addition to the multi-use trail that Nick mentioned at the town, there's a town project or DOT project right now. There's going to be a multi-use trail along Hillsborough Street. When we got the Belmont project approved with that road connection, the town required that we put a multi-use trail within Belmont on the Lowe's Drive, and also the crossover there that you see, that white little stub. So we'll have a multi-use trail that will go back to the Belmont stub and connect to the multi-use trail within that project also. With regards to the sort of building height, we sent, and I didn't include this in the presentation, but we sent a photo to the staff because we were requesting a building height of up to 80 feet in this back area here. And that's primarily to allow, I'm not saying this will happen, it just allows the parameter for this to happen. If you're heading sort of east from Pittsboro and you're going towards Apex, if you know where that new Harris Teeter Sweetwater is built, those buildings that you see on the opposite side from the Harris Teeter, that's a 20-foot pedestal sort of retail, and then it's got 5 stories of apartments above that. So that was the reason for that height allowance. We sent an elevation of that project over. And so I'm not saying we're going to build that there, but that just gives us the option to kind of put that density in play that we're looking to do here, and also allows us to provide a more affordable project doing that. that's pretty much what I have on the technical side, and I'm happy to answer any questions as well as Nick.
Thank you, Mike. Does anyone have any specific questions for Mike or Nick?
Yes, I'd just like to get some clarification. The, where you've got the notation there, the future street by others. Are you saying that that has been approved?
Yes.
Will be
That was a
considered?
condition, on the Belmont project. The white section that you see there is actually part of the Belmont MUPD.
Mhm.
When that project was approved about a year ago, there was an obligation to construct a street to this piece of property, so the two streets would meet together. So, will they build their section before ours? I can't tell you that right now. I know we're working on plans on that side, but ultimately there'll be a connection street there.
Okay, so I'm,
The obligation for the white is Belmont MUPD, and then the area within our project would be an obligation of this project.
yeah, because what bothered me was that on the vehicular circulation, there's a notation there in the first paragraph that says that a cul-de-sac will be put there if the street is not completed.
Great comment. Yeah, the fire marshal basically just said, if for some reason you build the street first, I want you to put a little turnaround there until the other street is finished. If that makes sense. So that it's in, and they would probably have to do the same thing if they beat us to the punch there. Yeah, so that's a temporary situation.
Now, the southern access point, you're saying that traffic coming out of here will be a right turn only?
Right.
Okay.
That's right. So basically, if you're coming from town, you can make a right turn into there.
Right.
And if you're leaving, you're going to go back up to the signal and come back out. You'll go out the main entrance. Yeah.
Oh, so that'll be basically a one-way street?
It's a two-way street because you could go north out of there too. So you could come down there and go north.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's more of a restricted entrance there.
I mean, this isn't a question, this is just a comment. And that is, one of my big concerns is the traffic in that area. Certainly, it was funny that you mentioned Sweetwater because yes, I've seen what that situation is at Sweetwater, especially even with the stoplights there. It's still a mess.
I live in there. I can tell you the restricted turns hurt that situation too. So we don't have that here because we have a opposite street opposing us right now. They're taking to Powell Place. And so, other people might argue differently, but I think that makes it more challenging because if you're coming out of Sweetwater, you've got to go east to go west, right? So that won't be a problem here. So we'll have more full movement at this location. And so we've got two signals too, which is nice. So you've got two signals they'll be synchronized because of the proximity to each other. So that I think will alleviate some of the traffic, the existing signal at Lowe's Drive and then the signal at this location.
Go ahead, Turgeon.
Yeah, just one more. So yeah, on one of these drawings, there is a rendering for a grocery store. That doesn't bother me too much because you're not talking about a ton of traffic. But is there any idea how many units, if this goes residential, how many units would be constructed in that orange area?
There could be upwards, I don't know the exact number, but upwards of 300 units probably, but that's not really realistic. I mean, if you're talking about an upward end, when the traffic study was done, we asked the traffic engineers to use the highest intensity, okay, for every single parcel, which would be the worst case scenario. So this was approved under the worst case density.
You mean 5 stories? Is the worst case scenario, 5 stories?
Over a podium, that's right, yeah. And that's really in the back part of the site, right? So it's not, and that's, I could tell you our client's initial interest is more geared towards non-residential. There may be a residential component, but our main interest is, and we believe there's a lot of commercial interest in this location because of its proximity to the interchange and the fact that there's going to be a lot of rooftops around here. But we have allowed the option for a portion of this to be multifamily.
And I had a couple of comments. Yeah. So one, the enhanced traffic measures are great. I drove them yesterday. I drove the route and looked at it and I thought it was a great improvement over the previous. And then secondly, the mixed use residential piece of it. I mean, that's exactly what people are asking for, right? To share parking spaces, to reduce the impact on the environment. And so the residential piece of this would be good. We need the housing and in a mixed use format, right? So I think that's great. On a quick question though, on the 2-3 parcels that are in red, parcel 1, 2, and 3, any idea of what those would end up? Are those strictly commercial or what's the?
They're single story or maybe 2-story. We might have allowed for a 2-story there, but they're primarily quick service restaurant potentially or other retail uses that you would think of in that location.
Just one, okay. I would just encourage residential because we need it and in a mixed use format, it's good for our environment, so. And it's, I mean, a really good job planning.
Thank you, Mike.
I have a question. When I was reviewing the application, you talked about existing structures on the property. I know there's an old gas station on the property. Are there any environmental issues with that old gas station and the removal of that structure and the other structures on the property?
That's a great question. Yeah, so there's been an environmental study done for the property. And so I can't recall if there was any contamination on this site. And so I know that if there was, there would be a resolution basically for that. Is there anything, Yasmin, that you?
We're waiting on a no further action. There was taking steps to address, we should have that no further action soon.
But that's that, we've had environmental consultant on the site handling those issues.
Thank you. Mr. Kuhn, Tingle, do you have anything
Yeah,
to add?
I'm sorry, yes. Appreciate it. Thank you. I was gonna point out to you all, which I was waiting to hear this a minute ago, but since I didn't, I think now's a real good time to mention it. The maximum height on the 3 parcels at the front that are commercial is 50 feet. So it's not drive down the road and suddenly find yourself at 80 feet. It's 50 across the front and then as you move back, which will be safely up against everything else behind it. So in your packet, before you get to the traffic study, there is a consistency statement. And what we were hoping for tonight is a dual motion to adopt both a resolution to approve, but also accept the consistency statement. So on the consistency statement itself, it is consistent with the town's land use plan, and the subject property has been designated for mixed use activities and additional neighborhood and residential infill. Rezoning is of course reasonable and in the public interest will benefit the surrounding community by providing services and activities that are supportive of surrounding residential neighborhoods that are located adjacent. I did also want to point out one other thing that I didn't hear me say a minute ago, and sometimes I talk so much I can't hear myself. But the red areas do not interface directly out into the street. Those places are actually using the main intersection to go in and out. Again, it's a safety feature as far as the proximity to Lowe's Drive and McDonald's. Any questions for staff?
Thank you, Randy. With that, then I will accept a motion to either approve or deny. Amend.
Question will approve with the consistency that is consistent with the town.
All right, motion by Elfrida. Second by James Buster. Motion on the floor is to recommend approval of PB 25-140 and the draft consistency statement as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes to approve PB 25, or I should say recommend approval of PB 25-140.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next year, we're also presenting PB 25-73 Corbinton rezoning as well.
Yes, I am. And I'm very pleased to be here this evening having this discussion with you. This particular project has been on my desk and certainly in our awareness for quite a while. It is 21.28 acres of land. It is currently zoned R12, which is medium density residential, and the idea is a multifamily type residential conditional zoning district. It is just north of Cambridge Hills Assisted Living in the town's extraterritorial planning area along Old Graham Road. I do want to point out that this is actually one of the very few parcels on that road that is not included in the corporate limits. So there is a voluntary annexation petition that is going on in parallel to this particular thing. So this particular project is exciting enough that in a few minutes, we're going to have some folks come up and explain it to you. Because it is very different than most of what we normally see. The feature that makes this rather interesting, and I don't know if we have a map that would allow us to address this, but let's go down a map or two and see what we see. Let's keep going, maybe one. Maybe not, are we just down to 3? So the answer is no, we don't. But anyway, what I was going to say is the idea here is that this particular developer had a concept that we thought a great deal of, which is actually taking a sidewalk down Old Graham well off the site. There is a greenway that is over in the environmentally sensitive areas there, which is more of a wilderness path than something paved. That's the brown dashed line. But over here on Old Graham, the actual sidewalk that they are proposing to pay for, the construction of it is going to take you down to the traffic circle. And I want to say that if you were actually at the traffic circle and you wanted to walk up there this afternoon, that would be an impossibility. You would be walking on the shoulder of the road, which has a variety of conditions. As such, when you get inside of the actual general conditions and so forth, the affordable housing piece and the public recreation piece are unusual. I'm certainly going to make sure that Mr. Robinson does explain those two in detail. Very obviously, staff has, as I say, spent what I believe would be just best described as an extraordinary amount of time on this particular project. I'm going to say over a year. That's a yes. He's nodding yes. It seems like it's been well over a year. And so let me say, it isn't that I dislike the project. It's exactly the opposite. I'm super excited. But this particular project has a couple of things. The parks that are proposed are for the use of the residents inside the community. This is not a public park. The greenway, on the other hand, is accessible from some of those public parking spaces that are there over the word park. And also you can get onto the trailhead, and the intention is to be able to visit other walking trails nearby, but also to use the sidewalk to get to downtown. So this is the living definition of a walkable community. And on that note, I'm going to invite Mr. Robinson to come up and get my vocal cords a rest. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Randy. Good evening again, planning board members, still Nick Robinson, 128 Hillsborough Street, Pittsburgh. And glad to be here tonight on behalf of this project as well, which is exciting for different but great reasons. And I'm here on behalf of Blue Heel Development LLC, which is Julie Gavigan right there, and Zach Lowenstein, who's here with Blue Heel. And we've been working with them for a while, as Randy pointed out, and they have been working really cooperatively with the town to get this project to where we think it's just right. As the staff has reported, this is one that has a zoning designation of R12. And in order to do the project that they want to do here, it needs to be rezoned to MRCZ, which is basically a multifamily residential district in Pittsburgh. This rezoning would allow for up to 98 residential units. And the Blue Heel folks really have specialized in doing age-targeted communities like this one. So this would be an age-targeted community for folks. I'm not going to say old because I'm 61. So, but anyway, people in or around my age bracket. We did have, by background, we did have a community information meeting for this one on December 17th, which was well attended. 18 folks from around community came. And as a result of that meeting, it was a very positive and upbeat meeting, but there were a lot of things to talk about that night. The applicant worked very hard with the town to come up with a plan, as Randy mentioned, to extend the sidewalk from the traffic circle down at the community college and the library all the way up to its project and then beyond its project to Oakwood Drive. And as somebody who's been a runner in Pittsburgh, I've run down Old Graham Road before to the great treachery of my ankles. It would have been great if there had been a sidewalk there some of those times. But we'll talk about that portion of the project and the how it's going to be financed in just a moment. And then they also work with the town to address the construction of a greenway on the eastern side of the property to possibly contribute to a connection of the greenway all the way back to the central part of Pittsburgh. So in that 5 months that passed after December, we've been working, we spent a lot of time again with the county attorney and the county staff to work through all of the various conditions that apply to this project. And this one is not on version 22, but it's on version 17 of the conditions. So it's very similar. We worked really hard and some of it was fairly complex. But I think, again, we've gotten it to the point where it's in great shape. Staff appreciates it, I think, and we do as well. And it's been a very cooperative venture. I do want to focus for a moment, and I think if you could get to the PowerPoint slide 4, that would be great. Yes, okay, so that gives you the idea of the sidewalk project. You can see the frontage of the project obviously is going to have its own sidewalk, and it will have that. But where you see the red arrow connecting all the way down to the traffic circle, and then beyond to the north to Oakwood, Blue Hill came to the town to talk about this project. And basically their disposition about this was, we love doing a neighborhood like this, but we also want to contribute to the town of Pittsburgh to make it better for the community, but also better for the people that live in the community that we're going to build. And in the conversations about that, you know, Pittsburgh has a lot of different needs, right? One of them is affordable housing, you heard about in the last project. Another one is pedestrian and bike-friendly environments throughout the town. And so working hand in glove with the town staff, it was agreed that if it were possible, the developer would take what would have been a fee in lieu for affordable housing and use it to dedicate it to the construction of the sidewalk project off the side of the actual property here. And the way that that has worked out is that the developer has agreed that it will dedicate up to $420,000 to construct the off-site portion of the sidewalk. And if it turns out by some economies of scale or some other thing that they are able to build it for less than $420,000, then they have committed to donate the balance of it to the town for its use in the Affordable Housing Fund. And in addition to that, similar thing for the greenway on the rear of the property. They have agreed to commit $110,000 to the construction of the greenway. They are going to actually construct the greenway on their property. They don't have the legal right to construct it on anybody else's property on either end. But if the town gets easement from those property owners to do so, it may be able to do that in the future, which is the hope. And that's certainly a part of the pedestrian and biking plan in Pittsburgh. Again, the $110,000 that would be dedicated to that part of the project would be spent on the greenway, and if not expended, would be donated to the town, balance for the purposes of their greenway projects there or elsewhere. So I just wanted to point that out. That was the byproduct of a lot of conversations about how to do it and the cost and everything, and they've come to a good agreement about that. The same analysis applies to this rezoning as applied to the last one that we talked about, where you're looking at the factors of whether or not it complies with the comprehensive plan. And your staff has told you that in this case, this project taken all together, it does comply with your land use plan. And I'll just point out a few things. This property is designated on your comprehensive plan as traditional neighborhood infill on the future land use map. And it states that traditional neighborhood infill areas should be relatively close to downtown, which this is, and says that it should be of compact design. And if you look at that, this is a classic compact design for an age-targeted community. And it should be comprised of primarily single-family residential uses. That's what your plan says should be happening in this area. And this project will be comprised entirely of single-family residential uses as anticipated by the plan. It also calls for higher density uses if they're located near service areas. And in this case, the service area is the library and the community college. So you have this beautiful sort of commingling of purposes there between being able to get exercise and get out and walk, but then also be able to go to the services like the library and to the community college and ultimately to downtown Pittsburgh for shopping. The future land use map also recommends open space along the creek on the eastern side of the property that's known as Little Creek or Hill Creek. So there's a 100-foot buffer that you can see has been placed there near where the greenway would be, which of course would be very consistent with what the land use plan has been hoping for that area. It also aligns with the land use recommendations that are in the comprehensive plan for increasing walkability to downtown Pittsburgh and in key areas. And in addition, I guess the last thing I would say is that the land use plan specifically says in infrastructure recommendation number 11, and I'm quoting, improve sidewalk connections downtown and between existing neighborhoods and destinations. So it's hard to find an aspect of a project that complies more succinctly and directly with the goals and dreams of the land use plan in that regard. So the second part is to just review the conditions. And I would say that we spent a long time on those two conditions that I've already described, which are the ones that had to do with the sidewalk and the one that has to do with the greenway. Those are pretty important. Otherwise, I think the rest of the conditions, which have been vetted by the town attorney and town staff, are more of your typical conditions that you would find in a conditional rezoning. So with that, I would ask Mark to come up and show you the rest of his PowerPoint presentation, but also invite you to ask any questions or concerns when he's concluded with that. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good evening again, board members and staff. Mark Anshes with the City Group. I'm just going to hit a few points here. The difference between this type of product and a normal subdivision is we have a lot more open space. We're just under 50% open space. You can see all of the green on the property there. We're also putting a perimeter open space around all the lots. You know, it's a traditional subdivision. We'd have lots that would touch the lots that are north of us on Oakwood. So, you know, that was something that was also considered. Along Old Graham Road, the site is currently wooded. And so along Old Graham Road, we're doing a tree save that you can see there to sort of keep that tree line. The only place where we don't have that is as we get closer to our entrance, we had to create a sight line because there's a curve a little bit north there. So that's the only reason that area is opened up a little bit. So there's been some definite care to try to minimize the impact to adjacent properties. As far as the sewer goes, there's already existing gravity sewer on the east side of the site that's following that unnamed tributary that flows down to Robertson Creek. And then there's water out on Old Graham Road right now. So, you know, we'll be connecting that as well. And as far as the traffic goes, again, with 98 lots, it's not a lot of intensity. Old Graham Road doesn't have a high ADT on it today. A TIA is not required, but we did have a traffic consultant submit a package to NCDOT for their review and consideration. NCDOT did review that and said that at this level of traffic generation doesn't warrant a turn lane, but they did request that we put in a short right turn decel. So if you're coming from the library heading north, it would allow this traffic to kind of get out of the road as it's making a right turn, starting to slow down. So we'll have a right turn decel lane there at the entrance.
Would there also be any consideration for traffic coming from the north as well? Anybody turning in from there? Because as someone that also runs along there, that is a very blind curve.
Right. And so that's why we have a sight line from the entrance that goes.
Right, that will be.
That's why we had to pull the trees back a little bit in that southern area to make sure you have that good visibility at that location. So there'll be more than adequate safe stopping distance, the term they use, for traffic heading down. But we don't meet any warrants for a turn lane or anything at that location.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions.
I have questions.
Same, I have questions.
Okay, well, if we will, sorry, Matt, did you say you had a question?
Yeah.
Okay, Connie, if you'd like to start.
Okay. First question may be for Randy. How many units could be built with the current zoning on that property?
Acres.
It's 32.7 acres. It's R12, so you're so you could get probably 2.5 units, 2.5 lots, at 12,000, 24, 36. You're gonna have some road. You wouldn't have any open space, right? So, yeah. But, yeah.
a sidewalk.
Right. So this is triple what the current zoning.
Oh, since.
Okay. You are intending to build single-family units, but you're requesting multifamily rezoning, and that's what makes it possible for you to do.
So the land use.
One second.
The land use plan that's approved today would allow for townhomes, duplexes, and single family homes. Just that's what your intention shows in that location. And what we said in our conditions is that we won't have any townhomes here. We could have some duplexes, but the plan right now is shown as all single family units.
We have some shots actually of the product, and I was gonna take us, you're not being kicked away, you're just being asked. I'm happy to come here. Okay.
My name is Julie Gadigan. Sorry, my name is Julie Gadigan. I'm a real estate developer and I'm a cable development. Thank you for having me. Randy asked me to just introduce you to our product and tell you a little bit about our company. I'm a local real estate developer. I've been here in the Wildcat Triangle market for about 25 to 27 years. I grew up here, my family's here, I live here, I worked here, so I'm just real local, so personal to me. My company, we have developed our own set of plans, custom plans, and we have four floor plans and 3 different elevations for each floor plan to make it look, all of them have front elevations. I think you have a few more, if you don't mind mistaken. They're all trying to get people engaged in the community feel, trying to have it be a warm and open community so you can walk around. That's the reason that the sidewalk and greenlands are so important to us. We found that getting folks out of their home and integrated with their neighbors and meeting their neighbors and being involved in the community is a really great way for them to be healthy and happy. And so this is really integrated in our design. So we've spent a lot of effort and energy trying to make sure that it looks really great and has a nice curb appeal and people really enjoy it. So I think there's a few more, but
Yeah.
it could be wrong.
Now keep going. Yeah, just, that's it? That's really it? Okay, so. Well, the other point, don't go anywhere. The other point to consider is, of course, that the maintenance of the site is HOA. So the idea is that it's age restricted, but it's also people who aren't in love with doing lawn care. You're basically going to have a structure that is largely maintained for you so that you can enjoy the third of your life.
That's right. Yeah, so we would have an HOA that would maintain all the exterior, clean the gutters, paint the house, fix the windows, all of that. So you can just turn your key and go or do whatever you'd like to do, travel, visit your grandkids, whatever that means. So it is fully maintained from that standpoint as well.
The other feature of the house is, don't go anywhere, we're not done. We're selling. Okay, the other feature of the house is that the primary living space, including some of the sleeping space, is on the ground floor. So the upper area would be for visitors or family members. It's not for so master on the ground floor is one of the first things people in my age group are looking for.
Actually, our homes have at least 2, almost all have 3 downstairs bedrooms. The upstairs is an optional bedroom with an optional bonus room is included with a bath, and mostly for grandkids to visit and, that kind of thing. So it's really master downrange plans type thing.
When I saw the second story, that was my first question, was what about your knees?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, over to y'all's questions.
I have a question. Oh, sorry, Connie, are you done
Sorry.
with your question?
Connie,
Sorry.
Connie had. Carry on, I'm sorry.
this is more of a comment. You have said that there are no adverse environmental impacts, and by definition, I understand that. I also understand that it's 20 acres of woods next to a creek. So it will certainly impact the wildlife and the.
In an area that's largely already developed, above and below.
Right. Which makes it a little island.
Yes, ma'am.
You say that this project addresses the demand driven by upcoming economic projects. What project are you referring to?
Anybody? Ned, you want to handle that? Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's too surprising that, to say that in Pittsburgh, we've got a lot of great growth coming our way. That includes both residential and commercial. Yeah, so this would be to accommodate the rising tide that's lifting all boats. Some of those folks are going to be in the age targeted bracket, and they need a place to live too. And in some ways, this is affordable housing with the lowercase a, not with the uppercase a. Can be
Very, very lower.
yeah, very lower. Yeah, I mean, I agree, and that's why I made that distinction. But yeah, it's for all of the folks that in that age bracket that may want to live here too. Because Pittsburgh is a great place to live.
So related to the targeted 55 and up, what does that mean? I mean, is there an enforcement that you have to be 55 and up, or anybody can live there, but the houses have bedrooms downstairs?
Yeah, I mean, there is a difference between age targeted and age restricted. This would be age targeted. So it's targeted to people and designed for people that are in the 55 plus range. And so all the things that appeal to people who are 55 plus, like more than one downstairs bedroom, are built into the design of the homes that they sell.
So related to the age thing again, is the traffic estimate based on that? Is that considered that you're expecting older people to live there, so that affects the amount?
Looks like the gang's all here. Come on up.
The actual traffic study was based on a typical single family home, which actually produces more trips than the age target does.
This may be a misunderstanding on my part, but I read all streets shall be public and maintained by the town. And then in the community input response, it says roads will be private and maintained by property owners association. So which is it?
Not bad. Yeah, that's an excellent observation on your part. And one of the things that happened as a result of the community input meeting and our discussions with the town was it was making more sense for it to be public if we could do that, because the utilities are going to be in the roadway as well, and some other things. And so what we did was, part of the problem that the town had with it being public rather than private was a parking concern. And so if you look in the center there, yeah, she's going to try to enlarge it, blow it up. Yeah, you see where at the bottom where that little black arrow. There you go. Yeah, you see there's 10 little dive-in parking spaces there that are there to accommodate traffic that may be there not routinely. And so with that, with those additional parking spaces in there, the town was fine with the public roads. And in the end, that seemed like the best solution overall. So there was a change from the time that we had the conversation at the community input meeting to the time where we arrived at now.
And certainly to the wilderness question, obvious¬ the wetlands area and the stream buffer area and everything that you see that's green. I'm pointing up, but you're looking down. So let's just assume that we're looking at the same image. Essentially, you've got wetlands, you've got sort of a stream, you have a wet pond, you have a great deal of green there. So it's about the only way you're going to get 97 structures in there. But I would have to say that there's an abundance of green. Not as much as there is right now, but you know, it's for a neighborhood, it's pretty good.
the affordable housing thing, it sounds like there's a sidewalk in lieu of affordable housing.
Yes, ma'am.
So what are the expected price ranges on these properties?
Your question.
This is always such a hard question. It's hard to know. In our other two communities, we've built 3 of these so far. One's in Hillsborough, one's in Cary, and one's in the Charlotte office. They started in the high 4s, low 5s. We have had people option up pretty extensively, and then we've had people that just started left it at the base. So it could really run the gamut. We've allowed people to sort of, make their choices. You can pick as much or little as you would like. It offers some pretty good flexibility. And we were able to get in, some retired teachers and some retired firemen and some retired police officers that we're really proud of. So it could really run the gamut, but generally high 4s to high 5s range.
Back to the traffic. This is my
Can
last.
we stay on the affordable housing for just a minute, if
Okay.
you don't mind?
Yeah.
I'm just curious about how the sidewalk becomes affordable housing. Like, what's the leap? Because while I understand the need for a sidewalk, I think that's, laudable. It doesn't feel like it's, I don't want to say this out of turn, but it doesn't feel like it's in good faith, right? Like the sidewalk and affordable housing. So just curious how that happened.
I'm gonna get Nick to take most of the question, but the town does have a position on it. Oh,
That's one.
let's go ahead.
I want to interrupt you. I think that's a great question. So as I mentioned, it might have been in the prior case, but on this one, affordable housing is not a requirement in the ordinance, right? And so the question when you come into a conditional rezoning is, how do you best kind of fit this project into the multiple different needs that the town has? And there are lots of different projects that are helping to feed the affordable housing need. This project is one where it made more sense. Another community need is making sure we got safe ways for pedestrians to move about. So when the affordable housing element is not required, we said, well, we can put some money into the project that could go towards affordable housing. And the town was like, well, it'd be better if you dedicated that money to the sidewalk project. And we're like, yeah, well, okay, that sounds good. So it's like one of those things where it's optional to begin with, but even once you decide to do it, sometimes you can just give money instead. And in the mixing of all of that in together, it made sense in this particular project to dedicate that to the sidewalk. Now, if it turns out that the sidewalk is cheaper, and the balance of that gets paid into the town, they can use it for any affordable housing component that they want.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Randy, were you going to?
No, all I was going to say is that we don't go anywhere. Stick around. I like you both. We do have an established fee in lieu. So you always, when you're developing property here, have the option of simply just taking affordable completely out, paying the fee, and then the fee is designed to go into something. In this particular case, we're an awful lot more interested in trying.
I see now. Yeah, but anyway, if y'all can hear me, okay, we didn't pay the light bill. Let us. So this is a way to get it incentive on their part to pay in sooner while the cost of the construction of the sidewalk is somewhat nominal compared to what it would be 10 years from now.
let me know how I'm doing. But anyway, let's just assume I'm explaining correctly. So in this particular case, because of the condition of the project and the property, which is, come on up, which she can speak a little bit more to, it's kind of hard to be all the way. It's kind of hard to be everything to everybody. So this felt like a really good compromise in the eyes of staff.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And then I guess the other question my last question about this, the other question I had about the sidewalk was, if the costs exceed the 420, the town shall, if they want to, reimburse or they pay the rest of the fees, right? Is that essentially?
That would be the assumption. We haven't spent nearly as much time on what happens if it exceeds as we spent on worrying about getting it there and assuming that it gets done in a way where we have additional money to put into some affordable. A recent contribution to that same fund went to defray the cost of the greenway for the Habitat for Humanity that's going to take you from Sanford Road over to the plant. That trail back there has actually been removed from the expenses that Habitat is paying, and it's with a similar contribution.
Yeah, okay.
In order for Habitat to provide an entire neighborhood of affordable, they needed somebody to remove the burden of $130,000 to $150,000 sidewalk.
I would just add, to your question, which is a great question, about the cost of the sidewalk. We had a lot of conversations with the town about how to get to that $420,000 figure. And what that's based on is estimates by the assistant manager, town engineer, about what it would cost the town to build that sidewalk. And the beauty of this arrangement is that the hope is that with the developer already being out there and being able to have the economy of scale of constructing the neighborhood at the same time, they can bring the cost down lower than what the town would have to pay for the sidewalk. So the town winds up paying less and getting a contribution to their fund in addition to that.
Okay, so one of the risks that we have and stuff is, one you guys have is not being able to start building or start occupancy and stuff until water and waste and stuff are there and stuff. Are you guys committed to like building the sidewalk first, like ready to go now? That side,
By the 50th.
yeah, but that could be for years and right?
Not really, that's not their plan.
Well, it's not their plan, but like. That's, is that a greenway or another walkway or is that connecting things? That's a greenway and stuff. I don't know if anyone was there on Oakwood last Thursday and stuff. Like, is there gonna be a bridge? You know, I mean, that's always underwater.
But they make that connection any further than where, I know what you're talking about, the flooding there.
Yeah.
Oakwood.
It just goes into the lake then, or what is that?
Maybe make a connection to the road. Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to go from one side of the property to the other, right? And the idea is, so I don't think the town right now has an easement for a greenway on that property to the north. But if they were to obtain one, if two things were to happen, if the town were to obtain an easement and there were additional funds left from the $110,000, then the town could jump right in and extend the greenway to there. Now, the design of it, I don't know whether it would need a bridge there or what.
Would there be any like options in case like we're not able to maintain an easement and stuff instead of doing it right there to the end of nowhere? Could you do it somewhere else? Or
Easement actually comes along with the public utilities. I'm saying there would be a dual use. It's a sewer easement, but it's also a greenway easement. So those two are kind of together. The idea is that obviously you're going to want to, dedicating the easement is really entirely up to the owner and it's got to happen early. So that would happen with the construction drawing.
right. It's like, looks like it's a walkway from somewhere to nowhere. And like, we can't, like the green ones are internal, right? To the property, right? It's a private parks.
Yes.
So then like, I don't know how to get there.
If you live there,
Get
you
out.
find it right out.
Yeah, right. It just seems like maybe we could use it elsewhere.
Yeah, that's another great point. And it was a topic of discussion actually about, is it better if we just contribute the $110,000 or build the greenway on the site? And we had some very, very specific and concrete conversations with the town manager about that. And
Yeah.
his feeling is so strong about getting the greenway built that he wants the applicant to build it on this site as part of getting the project going. And but we're good either way. I mean,
That's
what I
good.
mean, yeah, if it
Be
turns out
flexible.
the town just wanted the cash, then we would do that instead, but we're happy to build it too, while we're building everything else.
All right, so you'd be happy to like extend the 420 to 530, for instance, and then we could do that on our own when we want to as a town or not.
That's the.
Okay, cool.
It's in two separate conditions. One is the sidewalk 420 and then the other is 110 for the.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine stuff. That's great.
Strongly about this.
Oh, yeah. The one on the west side, right?
It's a big philosophical reason for us, connecting this project to the library.
Mhm.
And great open space is, I believe, the right thing to do.
And for aging right there too, yeah.
It's something to do for us. It's mostly the right thing to do for the community, right? Now, all the neighbors at Oakland came out and said, I really would like to see this happen soon.
Yeah.
And I walked down the middle of the road and I'm the bus and my kids and my bicycles and it's not safe. And I said, we're gonna make a commitment to make it happen. And so it's really.
Yes. I think that sidewalk's gonna be great and stuff. Is it gonna be lit?
Good question.
How much?
Will it be lit?
Not sure.
I appreciate the need for the sidewalk, but I also appreciate the need for affordable housing. So it just feels
Yeah.
like you gain access for the community members, but not necessarily for the town. And while I recognize,
I was gonna actually spell out something that's quite important. Some of the affordability of purchasing a home in here would come in the place of, no matter how low the actual price is, the HOA fees are identical for all the owners. So if the house were in your, okay, no, she's here, okay, I didn't want you to go too far. I was gonna say, if the house was in your price range by being reduced, at the same time, the burden of the HOA fee is identical. It's absolutely against the law in North Carolina to have a lower HOA fee for people who have an affordable housing arrangement. One of the situations that we ran into when we went on a bus tour of, I cannot remember how many, I'm drawing a blank, but we went to 5 or 6 or I don't know, an amazing number of affordable places. And one of the conversations we had on this more than 3-hour bus ride around in the immediate triangle area to where we are here on affordability, as we talked to some folks from Durham and Chapel Hill and said, hey, what if you end up in a neighborhood where the HOA fee is $550 for all this lawn care and all this other stuff? Not that that's for yours, but I'm just saying if that were the case. And the answer was, well, someone has to pay it.
Right.
The way that they take in that HOA fee with these affordable projects in other places is by contributions from the local government. Somebody still has to pay it, is the point. So given the catch-22 of get in, can I afford the house? Yes, but can I afford the HOA fees? Don't know, because they're not part of your mortgage. That is a separate standalone. In my case, it certainly is. Let me just say that the goal of having a community where you sort of lock and leave and it's quite beautiful and it's taken care of while you're there, might run afoul of the idea of the affordability piece, which is why this was one of the other options that was offered. And there is always the option of just simply not including it and paying a fee, which is also there.
Thank you. If we have any other questions that don't pertain to the sidewalk or the affordability, I'd like to have those now. Alan, did you have anything?
We have a big project right after this.
Yeah, just real quick, and I just want to get this out here. I mean, I think it's great that we're going to have a sidewalk and everything, but south of this development, you've got that traffic circle. And people are going to have to cross traffic to get to town. They're going to have to cross traffic to get to the library. That is a dangerous traffic circle. So I don't know whether there has been anything, and I guess this would be directed more to Kent and maybe your group. I mean, has anything been discussed about possibly reworking that traffic circle.
Let's put in like a sign, lights and stuff, you know.
I don't know what the answer is. I'm sitting here and I'm stumped as to what the answer would be, but we've also got, don't we have truck traffic that's detoured up 87 there?
Dog trucks.
Yeah. So that's my big consideration. I mean, you know, we want to be certainly pedestrian and bike friendly, but we also want to be pedestrian and bike safe.
Yeah, certainly. Good evening, board. So I guess to answer parts of your question. So, I mean, the traffic circle there is challenging. One thing that's challenging about it that will be far beyond the scope of this development is just the sheer size of it. I mean, it's compact. And the vehicles that are using it are, as you pointed out, large trucks. For example, last summer, some signs were driven over. We worked with DOT to replace the damaged sidewalk and curb. Before the cement dried, another large truck ran over it, and it's in the deteriorated condition it is today. So there are no plans currently to expand, enhance that interchange. It would be mostly a DOT project, as all three of those routes are NCDOT routes. Certainly, we may come to the table if DOT were receptive to some type of joint project, but there's nothing underway or been discussed as far as that goes currently. However, we have made more than once a request to DOT to repair that intersection, remark the pedestrian crosswalks, replace some signage that's been, you know, driven over, damaged over the years. But so far that has not happened. So there are some things that could be done short of a rebuild or redesign that we can continue to, you know, press DOT to help us do. So.
Thank you, Kent. With that, do I have? Sorry, Randy.
I was just gonna say, in your packet, when you're going for your motion, please understand, there is a draft land use plan consistency statement, which is right after the signature page of the community information meeting. As stated previously, it is consistent with the land use plan. There's nothing more consistent with the land use plan than filling in a traditional neighborhood as an infill in the middle of an area marked for that exact use. It is reasonable and the public interest will benefit the surrounding community by adding one type of housing choice that single family and potentially duplex residences that are age, I put restricted, but it's actually age targeted near commercial areas with good connections to Collector Street. So that should be age targeted. But I would ask that you all, with that one amendment, give some consideration to adopting both.
Quick question first. Is there any way to do it where the two sidewalks are just that sidewalk first? And then back side of their own property that connects to no one in the town, you know, like just get that one done first for the.
What you're saying is
prioritize one that everyone can use. And then instead of like this one.
You can make no recommendation, add that recommendation to the motion. And we can run it that way.
I'll move to approve it under the current UDO conditions. If we can take the 110, add it to the 420 to happen first, and if that's not exhausted, then extend to the other. Is that a fair way to say it or no? Does that make sense?
That part in the back is a greenway, not a sidewalk.
No, that's a sidewalk, but it connects to nothing.
It will be a greenway.
You won't be able to access it now, maybe eventually.
A larger sidewalk.
Oh, a large.
Yeah.
It's larger sidewalk. Doesn't go to a road and it goes through a private road.
Doesn't always have to be a paved trail, but
that makes sense?
Improved trail.
Okay.
The entirety of the trail that's happening over by the Haw River that's being done, particularly on the state property, is crushed plant material. It is
Sand.
Not, got it.
so in an area that's environmentally sensitive, it would be a joint decision as to what the materials were, and that's considerably down the road. That's definitely, I mean, this is not a subdivision thing. This is just a rezoning with a very cool picture.
I think that this is a great sidewalk that's very beneficial to everyone in this community and everyone outside of this community and stuff. And to make sure that that happens and we don't exhaust funds, would be great to have the provisions to be able to add the 110 first. And if those are exhausted, then move to that.
Okay, so the motion on the floor then is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the major subdivision preliminary plat with also the recommendation.
We're just doing the rezoning right now.
Okay.
Preliminary plat will be out
Okay.
later.
The motion is to recommend that the Board of Commissioners approve the subject major subdivision preliminary plat. Do I have a second for that motion? Seconded by James Buster. All in favor, please say aye.
Right.
All
I didn't vote
opposed?
yet. I'm thinking. I will say aye. Sorry,
Okay.
yes, sorry.
Sorry. Yes, in this case, then I'm going to go ahead and just do a roll call on it. James Buster?
Yes.
Aye. Alfred Olson?
Aye.
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 Christina Piard? Aye. Alan Wilson?
Aye.
Aye. Connie McAdams?
Aye.
Aye. Matt Hayes? Aye. Corey Forrest? Aye. That is unanimous. The motion to recommend the Board of Commissioners approve the subject major subdivision preliminary plat. Thank you, Randy.
It's the conditional rezoning.
Conditional rezoning.
Sorry, which I'm looking at the wrong way.
It's all good. I think the town attorney would like it restated just slightly, if you don't mind.
Yes, absolutely. Staff recommends the planning board the Board of Commissioners approve the subject.
Conditional.
Which one am I looking at? I was gonna say, I'm sorry, this says preliminary plat. Just give me a second. I got it. All right. Motion approved is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the subject
Conditional rezoning.
conditional rezoning.
You got it.
All right. Does that satisfy what we need, Mr. Messick? Thank you.
All right.
You sure?
We're now going to have a seat because we have a wonderful presentation about story thing by Disney's Asteria. Yes. I'm leaving you. You're gonna go have a seat.
Got it.
Get paid back later.
Okay, moving on.
We get paid back later.
Miss Teresa Thompson, I do believe you are going to present PB 24-319 Chatham Park, section 1.1 and 1.2 residential subdivision, Asteria, phase 1, major subdivision preliminary plat.
Sir,
Thank you.
Teresa Thompson, Assistant Planning Director, presenting. We're gonna put up the overall site plan. We can go to different pages if we need to. But we'll keep it on this for an overview of the whole project. And it's been a few months since we've had a preliminary plat brought to you. So just a quick recap. If you subdivide more than 5 lots in Pittsburgh, you have to go through this major subdivision process. The first step is this preliminary plat. It's preliminary, just like the name is. It can change, but if it changes substantially, by the time we get to the construction drawings, it has to come back to y'all again. So the second step is the CDs, construction drawings, and that's when we give final approval for the roads, stormwater, water, sewer, that type of infrastructure. And then the third step is the final plat. That's what gets recorded in the Register of Deeds office, and then you can sell the lots after that. So even though this goes to the planning board for recommendation and town board for approval, it's an administrative decision. So if y'all remember, That's different than a legislative. It's basically staff level where we're looking at XYZ standards are met, and if they're met, then it gets approved. So Pittsburgh has this, even though it's administrative level, it still goes to the boards. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can still ask them, but I'll let you know if it's an actual standard or not. So, any questions about the steps? All right, we'll get started. DMB SWVP Raleigh LLC. They're proposing to subdivide approximately 171.83 acres. It's located on 2 parcels, and they are going to subdivide it to 494 residential lots. That includes 343 single-family detached dwelling units, 57 townhomes, 50 duplexes, and 44 quadplexes, or also known as fourplexes. And this is the first phase of Asteria. Sorry, breaking stuff. The property is located north of Suttles Road and east of the intersection of Grant Drive and Chatham Parkway. So the major road going north-south on the west side of the property, that's Chatham Parkway. Grant Drive intersects with that to the west. A portion of the property, about 48.92 acres, 92 acres is called a lot, so it's on the west side of the property line shown there in the middle. This property is located outside of the Chatham Park Plan Development District. It's zoned MRCZ, so it's not subject to the Chatham Park Master Plan elements or small area plan, though it was designed to meet all the standards. The remainder of the project area, approximately 122.91 acres, is located in the Chatham Park PDD. So we're going to go through the staff analysis. Feel free to stop anytime if you have questions. You don't have to wait till the end. So starting with water and sewer utilities, it will be provided by Tri-River. And there was a agreement in 2023. It was an interlocal agreement between the town, Chatham Park, and Sanford for Asteria, Del Webb, and another development that slips my mind at this moment, but to be served by the Sanford Regional Force Main. We have a couple of updates on the force main. The notice of award for it, which is basically choosing the contractor, was decided on May 14th. So the notice to proceed for construction should be issued either next month or in the next couple of months, and it should take about 2 years to be complete. And the water is already subbed to the site. Any questions about water and sewer? Okay, moving on to the environmental pieces. Proposed impervious of 36.9%. It can go up to 70%. Stormwater received preliminary review, and that we'll do the final review at CDs. There's a 100-foot required buffer on the perennial stream to the south of the property, and there's no floodplains. The lot required a type C perimeter buffer along the northern property line during the conditional rezoning. So that is being installed. There's also going to be a streetscape buffer along Chatham Parkway. And there are required tree coverage planting areas. It's required to have 20% of the residential area and 12% of the non-residential area. That totals to 32 acres required. Chatham Park is providing 51 acres. So about twice as much as what's required. And moving on to parkland and open space. Lands required at 1/33 of an acre per dwelling unit. And the parkland is going to be provided off-site. There's been discussions with the Parks and Recs director, and before the final plat step is approved, that'll all be ironed out. At this point, we know it'll be somewhere in the North Village and provided off-site. An open space, 1/100th of an acre per dwelling unit is required, and 1/20th of an acre per 1,000 gross square feet for non-residential is required. 13 acres total are required, and 52.35 acres of open space will be provided on site. There will also be a 10-foot wide multi-use path installed adjacent to Chatham Parkway
Asteria, Astor Green Parkway, which is the road on the east side that kind of like meanders around, and Asteria Boulevard, which is the main road going straight through the middle. Questions on any of that? Great, moving on to transportation. Grant Drive is constructed, ready to go. Chatham Parkway is being built in a few sections. Currently, the section that is between Suttles and Grant, it's going to be 4 lanes is being constructed. And it should be complete by the summer or fall of 2025. That's going to include an unsignalized 3-way stop on Grant and Chatham Parkway. When they get to the second phase of Chatham Parkway, which is about where Grant Drive intersects, going all the way up to connect to 15501 North, that'll change to a signalized intersection. And that section will be two lanes and expected completion in 2027. There's also proposed emergency access off of Astor Green Parkway that connects south to that down to Eubanks Road. And moving on to parking. There's 2 spaces per unit required and additional guest parking is required. So of what is required versus all the additional on-street parking that Chatham Park is providing is an additional 332 spaces beyond what's required. And if you want me to go into more detail with that, I can.
Question. Did you just say something about a 4-lane street with a 3-way unsignalized stop?
During the first phase of Chatham Parkway being built, it will be unsignalized, and then when Chatham Parkway is extended all the way to 15501, it will become signalized.
On a 4-lane road?
It transitions from 4 lanes to 2 lanes.
That the stop sign, is it 4-lane or 2-lane?
I think it goes beyond Grant, about 200 feet, I think.
Okay, it just sounds confusing.
That's more of an update of Chatham Parkway. That's separate from this subdivision. That's a approved STIP project. It's a DOT project. So the plans have been approved for that for at least a year or so. I just wanted to give you an update on it. The subdivision meets all of our comprehensive plans. We have this comprehensive transportation plan, bike and ped plan, and master parks and recs plan, including those multi-use paths being installed on Chatham Parkway, Astor Green, and Asteria Boulevard. So as I explained, the plans will be reviewed again at the CD level before construction can begin. The plans that are presented tonight, they've been reviewed in accordance with the town's applicable standards. That includes public utilities, public safety, engineering, and planning. If you don't have any more questions for me, I was gonna invite the applicant to come up to introduce themselves. If you have any questions,
No one else has anything, then yeah, that sounds good.
Sounds good.
Do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
Hello. Hi. I'm the General Manager for Asteria with DMB Development. It's such a pleasure to meet you all today, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to represent Asteria and our first-in-class project team. I thought tonight would be a perfect opportunity to briefly introduce you to the team. I might have to call some of them up to support me, so if that's okay. First, I'd like to introduce Mary Alexander, Executive Vice President, General Counsel of DMB Development. Beth Trajos, who is our local North Carolina counsel with Fox Rothschild. Robbie Oldham, Vice President and Civil Engineering Lead for Asteria and Chatham Park with Withers Ravenel. Everybody knows Robbie. Jason Buffkin, Civil Project Manager for Asteria, also with Withers Ravenel. Travis Fluent, who was our traffic engineer with Kimley Horn. Pete Sullivan, principal of LRM Group and director of land development for Asteria. And least but certainly not last, Tina Harlan, our executive assistant for the Asteria team, also with EMB development. We are truly excited to bring forward this phase one preliminary plat to you tonight. It's taken a long time in the making, so we're very excited to put this in front of you, and we look forward to building a meaningful and long-term relationship with you guys for years to come. Our full team is represented and present today, not only to demonstrate our level of commitment to the town of Pittsboro and the Asteria project, but also to address and respond to any questions the planning board might have related to the phase one plat application. So with that, are there any questions that our group can answer?
Anything? No.
Not yet.
Pretty quiet.
Not yet.
I'll ask one.
Okay, Connie?
This is simple. But the letter with your application lists 4 parcels. So where exactly on those 4, because that's 1,000 acres, those 4 parcels. So where is this located on those 4 parcels?
Sorry, when you say 4 parcels, are you talking about Asteria, all of Asteria?
Yes.
She mentions, I know, the application mentions 1,000 acres, this being, I think, 171 of it. She's asking where in that 1,000 is this?
So Asteria will be roughly about 1,500 acres. This is 171 acres, pretty central in the plan for Asteria.
Okay, so
It straddles 2 of the 4, basically.
So I'm assuming it's sort of where those 4 intersect.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. If you want to go back to the cover sheet, there's a vicinity map, might show it a little better. Too far. It's past the staff analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that. So all of the property you see, the white areas around it, those are the additional parcels.
The boundaries.
Sorry?
The boundaries roughly, I mean, is it up to the Han and over to our?
Yes, the North Village Small Area Plan shows the sections. Majority of it's section 1.1 and 1.2. So I don't have it in the presentation, but I can certainly email you all a copy of the overall map for the North Village.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any other questions they'd like to ask? Staff or otherwise? All right. Then I will accept a motion to either recommend approval or no, not approval of the preliminary plat.
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for phase 1 of Asteria.
I'll second.
Okay, Matt Hayes with the motion and Alfreda Alston seconded. Motion on the floor is to recommend that the Board of Commissioners approve the subject major subdivision preliminary plat. Asteria phase 1. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, we've got department updates. Mr. Coon Tingle.
Not much at all. I want to thank you all for your service tonight and tell you that in spite of everything going on, I'm very glad we were here together and I'm glad to be moving on. We'll have other projects in the next couple of months, but it's huge. And I think it's a good start.
Board comment period. I would just want to thank everybody for not being too critical of my stumbles through these things. I'm still getting it figured out. So I appreciate everyone's patience on that. Other than that, like, just to kind of piggyback off what he said, thanks everyone for being here. It's a lot on a Monday night. So, does anybody else have anything they'd like to add? All right, I'll accept a motion to adjourn then.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, motion to adjourn by Elfrida, seconded by Alan Wilson, all in favor. Please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.